This is the story of Maria Elena, a 68-year-old mother who uncovered the most treacherous plan from within her own family.
Something felt off lately. Her kids started coming home late and loud arguments were heard. I never imagined they'd plan something like that against their own mother.
My children were planning to get rid of me tonight, but I came home early and I heard them whispering. So I did this.
My children thought I was just a helpless old woman, but they forgot that mothers always know it.
When a mother hears her own children planning her death, something breaks forever. But they didn't know that a mother can also be very creative.
By the next morning, everything came to light. Each of them was taken away in handcuffs. The mother they had planned to silence had become their worst nightmare.
Hello, my name is Elena, and I'm 72 years old. I never thought that at my age I'd be writing this story, but I need to tell it because what happened to me could happen to anyone. This is my real story, word for word, exactly as it happened to me. It all started on March 15th. I remember the exact date because it was the night my world turned upside down. I woke up at 3:15 in the morning with terrible thirst. At my age, sleeping through the night is a luxury I no longer have. Between arthritis pain and blood pressure medications, I always wake up several times during the night. My house was silent. It's a big house for one person, 3 bedrooms, large living room, kitchen, and the small study where my late husband Roberto used to do the books for his auto repair shop. I've been living alone here for 15 years, since diabetes took Roberto. Most of the rooms I keep closed now. I only use my bedroom, the kitchen, and the living room. As I walked toward the kitchen with my cane, which I started using after a fall last month, I thought about how my life had changed. This house, that used to be full of my children, Miguel and Carmen's laughter, now only held echoes of memories. When I got to the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator and took out the filtered water pitcher. The doctor tells me it's important to stay hydrated with all the medications I take for blood pressure, cholesterol, arthritis, the anxiety I developed after Roberto died, and the vitamins that Carmen insists I take even though I doubt they help. I was pouring the water when I heard it. At first, I thought it might be the neighbors. The houses in my neighborhood are quite close to each other. But these voices sounded too close, too clear. They were coming from inside my own house, from the living room. My heart started beating fast. Had burglars broken into my house? But then I recognized the voices, and I felt even worse. It was Miguel speaking in a low voice, and Carmen responding in the same cautious tone. My own children were in my house at 3:30 in the morning, whispering in my living room while they thought I was sleeping. What were they doing there? Why had they entered without letting me know? Both of them have keys for emergencies, but they had never used them like this. I moved carefully toward the kitchen door, walking on tiptoe to avoid making noise. My heart was beating so loud I was afraid they might hear it. I positioned myself next to the door, where I could hear everything, but without being seen. "We can't keep postponing this," Miguel was saying in a tense voice. I recognized that tone. It's the same one he uses when he's very stressed. "Mom is getting worse, Carmen. Yesterday, she forgot to turn off the stove again. I found it on when I arrived, and she didn't even remember cooking." I froze. It was true that I sometimes forget small things, but the stove? I didn't remember that. "And last week," Miguel continued, "she couldn't find her heart medications. I found them in the refrigerator, next to the milk. Who keeps pills in the refrigerator?" Carmen sighed. "I know, Miguel, I know, but she's our mother. We can't just—" "What alternative do we have?" Miguel interrupted her. His voice sounded desperate. "Patricia says her aunt went through the same thing. At first, it was just small oversights. Then she stopped recognizing family. She ended up lost in the mall, not remembering how she got there. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Were they talking about me, like I was senile? Yes, I forget little things sometimes, but that's normal at my age. The doctor told me so. San Rafael Nursing Home has very good references. Miguel continued. I went to visit it last week. It's clean, the staff is friendly, they have activities for residents. It's not like those horrible places you see on the news. Nursing home. Miguel had gone to see a nursing home. For me? Without telling me anything. Without asking what I thought. You went to visit it without consulting me? Carmen asked, sounding surprised. Someone had to do it, Miguel responded. You work full-time, I work full-time. Patricia can barely handle our own kids. We can't take turns caring for Mom 24 hours a day. My legs started trembling. I leaned against the wall to keep from falling. My own children were planning to put me in a nursing home, without asking me, without including me in the decision. As if I were an object, not a person. But the cost, Carmen said with a worried voice. Good nursing homes are expensive, Miguel. Very expensive. I already thought about that, Miguel replied. I heard papers rustling. With the sale of the house, we could cover expenses for at least 5 years, maybe more if we find a slightly less expensive place. The sale of the house? My house? The house I bought with Roberto when we were young. The house where I gave birth to Carmen when we couldn't make it to the hospital in time. The house where Roberto built the terrace with his own hands where I grow my roses. The house where every corner holds memories of my entire life. I started crying, silently. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The house is worth quite a bit, Miguel continued. The real estate market is good in this neighborhood. The Lopez family on the corner sold theirs last month for a good sum. Miguel? Carmen's voice sounded hesitant. Are you sure this is right? That house means everything to Mom. It's where she lived with Dad, where she raised us. And what alternative do we have? Miguel raised his voice slightly before returning to a whisper. Let her burn down the house because she forgot to turn off the stove? Wait for her to fall and break her hip again? Or for her to leave the house one night and not remember how to get back? Every word was like a slap. Yes, I had fallen once in the bathroom and had to call Carmen to help me up. But that doesn't make me an invalid. We have to be realistic, Miguel continued. Mom is 72 years old. Dad died when he was 67, with her blood pressure and heart problems. Don't talk like that, Carmen interrupted him. Mom could live many more years. Exactly, Miguel said. Many years that could be terrible for her and for us if we don't make the right decision now. In the nursing home, she'll be safe. Have company, medical attention 24 hours. Here she's alone all day, talking to herself, watching the same soap operas over and over. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. Yes, I talk to myself sometimes. When you spend so much time alone, your own voice becomes your only company. And yes, I watch soap operas, but I also read, do crosswords, listen to music. I'm not a zombie. What if she doesn't want to go? Carmen asked after a pause. I held my breath, waiting for the answer. That's why we have to talk to the lawyer first, Miguel responded. My blood froze. If we can prove that she can no longer take care of herself, that she represents a danger to herself, the legal process is simpler. Legal process? My own children wanted to declare me incompetent? Did you already talk to a lawyer? Carmen asked in a small voice. I consulted with Rodriguez, the one who handled Dad's will, Miguel replied. He says if we have medical evidence of cognitive deterioration and documentation of incidents where she put her safety at risk, the judge would probably grant us temporary custody. Temporary custody. Like I was a child. I had to cover my mouth to keep from screaming. But we need more evidence, Miguel continued. That's why I've been coming so often lately, to document her oversights, her confusion. Patricia helps me keep a record. There was the truth. Miguel hadn't been visiting me more out of love. He had been spying on me, taking notes of every small mistake to use against me. Friends, if this story is impacting you as much as it's impacting me to tell it, please leave me a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Subscribe to hear the end of my story and share this if you know other seniors who might be going through something similar. What comes next will leave you speechless. Miguel, this feels wrong, Carmen murmured. It feels like we're betraying her. Betraying? Miguel's voice hardened. Carmen, we're trying to save her life. Would you prefer to wait for something terrible to happen? To have to identify her body after an accident we could have prevented? Part of me knew Miguel was somewhat right, and that hurt even more. I'm no longer the strong woman. I was all my life. There are days when I feel confused, days when the world seems more complicated than I remember. But I still have moments of perfect clarity, like this precise moment when I understood every word of their plan to destroy my life. We need her to sign some papers, Miguel continued, a power of attorney, a temporary property transfer. Rodriguez says if we do it gradually, it will be less traumatic for her and easier legally. When? Carmen asked, almost voicelessly. Tomorrow, Miguel replied. I already scheduled an appointment with Rodriguez for 2 in the afternoon. We'll tell her it's a routine update of her will. Tomorrow, in less than 12 hours, they were going to arrive with legal papers and lies to take everything away from me. What if she refuses to sign? Carmen asked. Then we'll proceed with involuntary custody. Miguel responded without hesitation. Rodriguez says, with the evidence we've collected, plus a psychiatric evaluation he can arrange, we shouldn't have problems. The psychiatric evaluation was also rigged. Everything planned without me knowing anything. I feel terrible about this, Carmen murmured, and I heard her crying. I remember when we were kids and Mom worked 2 jobs to support us after Dad died. She never complained, never made us feel like a burden. That's why we have to do this, Miguel replied, but his voice also sounded broken. Because she taught us to be responsible, to take care of family. This is taking care of her, Carmen, even if she doesn't understand it now. They had turned everything I taught them about family responsibility into weapons against me. Where did you get the keys? Carmen suddenly asked. The ones I gave Mom are copies, Miguel replied. I kept the originals after her fall last month. More lies. I remembered looking for my keys that week, wondering where I had put them. Miguel had stolen them from my purse and given me fake copies. How long have you been planning this? Carmen asked. Since the fall, Miguel admitted. Maybe since before. Patricia and I have been talking about this for months. Months. For months I had thought Miguel was being a loving son, when really he was building a legal case against me. The nursing home allows daily visits, Miguel continued. We'll be able to see her as much as we want, but without the responsibility and constant stress. Without the responsibility. They wanted to free themselves from the burden of caring for me, but making it seem like it was for my own good. Did you already reserve a place? Carmen asked. There's a waiting list, but Rodriguez knows the director. With a small additional donation, they can have a room available next week. 1 week. In 1 week, I'd be in an institution if their plan worked. And her things? Her furniture? Her photos? She'll be able to take some personal belongings, Miguel replied. The rest we'll put in storage or sell along with the house. There's no point keeping all that if she's not coming back. If she's not coming back, they had already decided this would be permanent. Miguel, Carmen's voice was a whisper. Did you ever think about simply talking to her, asking her what she wants to do? There was a long pause. What if she says no? Carmen, she's no longer the strong mom we remember. She can no longer make rational decisions about her own safety. But it's her life, Carmen insisted. Doesn't she have the right to decide how she wants to live it? Not when those decisions put her life at risk and our peace of mind. Miguel responded firmly. I'm her eldest son, and I'm not going to allow something to happen to her due to my negligence. I recognized that voice. It was the same one he used as a teenager when he made a final decision. Once Miguel decided something, it was almost impossible to make him change his mind. Besides, he continued, Rodriguez says if we wait much longer, the legal process becomes more complicated. It's better to act now. Did you bring the documents? Carmen asked. I heard papers moving. Here they are, Miguel replied. The power of attorney, property transfer, authorization for medical evaluation, and the preliminary contract with the nursing home. My God, Carmen murmured. You really planned everything. I had to, Miguel replied. Someone had to be the responsible adult. The responsible adult. I had been the responsible adult for decades, raising 2 children practically alone, working multiple jobs, caring for Roberto during his illness. And now they were treating me like an irresponsible child. What if Mom finds out? Carmen asked. That's why we're here so late, Miguel replied, to review everything one last time. Tomorrow we arrive, explain it's a routine update, and finish this. I had to make a decision. I could stay there crying while they finished planning my fate, or I could do something about it. But if I came out now and confronted them, they would only accelerate their plans. Tomorrow they'd arrive with an emergency custody order instead of papers for me to sign. No, I had to be smarter. I had to use the next few hours to think, plan, decide how to respond to this betrayal. We better go, Carmen murmured, if Mom wakes up. You're right, Miguel agreed. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock sharp. Can you get off work? I'll ask for the afternoon off, Carmen replied. Miguel, are you completely sure? There was a long pause. Carmen, 3 weeks ago, I found Mom in the garden at 2 a.m, in pajamas, watering Dad's roses in the rain. She didn't remember going outside, didn't know what time it was. I remembered that night. I had such a vivid dream about Roberto that when I woke up, I felt an urgent need to care for the roses he had planted. I didn't want to worry Miguel by explaining that sometimes I do impulsive things when I miss my husband a lot. It's just that, Carmen sighed. It feels like we're abandoning her. We're not abandoning her, Miguel replied. We're protecting her. I heard footsteps heading toward the door. Miguel? Carmen's voice sounded from the entrance. What? Do you think Dad would be proud of what we're doing? There was such a long silence, I thought Miguel wasn't going to answer. I think Dad would want Mom to be safe, he finally said. I heard the door close, then 2 cars starting and driving away. Only then did I allow myself to cry completely, sobbing on the cold floor of my kitchen. My children, the babies I carried, fed, and loved unconditionally, had planned to take away everything I had left in life, and they had convinced themselves it was for my own good. I stayed sitting on the floor until my numb legs forced me to get up. I walked to the window and looked at the garden where Roberto had planted the roses that still bloom every spring. Slowly, a new determination grew in my chest. My children had seriously underestimated their mother. They thought I was a confused and defenseless old woman. But Elena Martinez had survived poverty, her husband's death, decades of hard work. I hadn't come this far to give up now. If they wanted to play dirty, they would discover that their mother still had some cards to play. I went back to my room, but not to sleep. I sat on my bed, turned on the lamp, and started planning the most important battle of my life. The battle for the right to live my final years with dignity. My children had made a fatal mistake. They had shown me all their cards before playing them. Now I knew exactly what they were planning, and I had until 2 p.m. to prepare my response. Dawn found me awake, with red but determined eyes, and a very specific plan of what I would do before they arrived with their documents and lies. Chapter 2. The Master Move. I didn't sleep another minute. At 6 in the morning, I showered and dressed in my best navy blue dress, the same one I wore to Miguel and Carmen's graduations. I combed my hair carefully, put on makeup for the first time in weeks, and looked at myself in the mirror. Elena Martinez, I told myself, it's time to remember who you are. At 7 o'clock sharp, I dialed the first number in my plan. Attorney Herrera, this is Elena Martinez. I need to see you this morning. It's urgent. Attorney Herrera had been Roberto's lawyer and later became our family attorney. The important thing is that he had no relationship whatsoever with this Rodriguez that Miguel had consulted. Can you come to my house? I'm 72 and don't drive much anymore. I'll pay extra for the house call. An hour later, I opened the door for Attorney Herrera. Mrs. Elena, how can I help you? I brought him into the living room, the same one where my children had planned my fate, and told him everything, every word I had heard, every plan they had schemed. Mrs. Elena, he told me when I finished, what you're describing is a conspiracy to obtain fraudulent control over your person and assets. It's very serious. What can I do? First, we need to prove that you are mentally competent. Would you be willing to undergo an independent psychiatric evaluation? Of course, I replied immediately, but I need it to be today before 2 o'clock. He made several calls and got me an emergency appointment with Dr. Patricia Vasquez, a specialist in mental competency evaluations. Second, he continued, we need to protect your assets immediately. I took out all my important documents, deeds, bank papers, will, insurance policies. I want a new will, I told him firmly. And I want to establish a trust that allows me to maintain control while I live, but prevents my children from manipulating my inheritance. At 10 o'clock, I was in Dr. Vasquez's office. The evaluation lasted 2 hours. Memory tests, reasoning, comprehension. Mrs. Elena, she told me at the end, you show normal signs of cognitive aging, but you are completely competent to make your own legal and personal decisions. Anyone trying to declare you incompetent is acting in bad faith. She gave me an official certified report that I carefully saved. Back home, Attorney Herrera and I worked quickly. I signed a new will that left my house to a charitable organization with the condition that I could live here until my death. The rest of my assets would be divided among various charities, with only a small portion for Miguel and Carmen. I also want a restricted power of attorney, I told him. If something happens to me, I want you to make the decisions, not my children. At 12:30, all documents were signed and registered. Then I made more calls. First to the bank, I transferred most of my savings to a new account where Miguel and Carmen had no information. Second, to my insurance company, changing the beneficiaries. The third call was the most painful but also the most important. Mrs. Lopez, this is Elena, your neighbor. Do you remember you told me that if I ever wanted to sell my house, you'd like to buy it for your son who's getting married? The Lopez family had been saving for years to buy a house for their eldest son. We agreed on a fair price and a quick sale. You can keep living here until you find where to move, Mrs. Lopez assured me. But I had already thought about that. My fourth call was to Golden Sun Residences, an apartment complex for independent seniors. It wasn't a nursing home. It was a place where seniors who can still take care of themselves live in community. Do you have an apartment available immediately? We have a 1-bedroom that becomes available tomorrow. Would you like to come see it? I'll go this afternoon after 4 o'clock. At 10 minutes to 2, I was sitting in my living room, perfectly dressed, with my folder of new documents in my lap. I had prepared coffee and cookies as if it were a normal visit. At 2 o'clock sharp, they arrived. I saw them park from the window. Miguel was reviewing a folder in the passenger seat. Carmen looked nervous. I opened the door before they knocked. "Children," I said with a cold smile. "What a surprise. Come in." They entered with their folders, acting strangely formal. "Mom," Miguel said, "we need to talk about some important matters." "Of course," I replied, directing them to the living room. "Would you like coffee?" "No, thanks," Miguel said quickly. "It's about your well-being and safety." I sat in my favorite chair and looked at them calmly. "My well-being? What about my well-being?" Carmen shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we're worried. You've had some incidents." "Incidents? What kind of incidents?" Miguel opened his folder. "Last week, you forgot to turn off the stove. Yesterday, you didn't remember where you put your medications." "I see," I said calmly. "And what do you propose to do about it?" "We've been researching care options for you," Miguel said. "Places where you can be safe and well cared for." "Nursing homes?" I asked directly. Miguel jumped. "Not exactly nursing homes. Retirement communities." "Like San Rafael Nursing Home?" I asked, and I saw how he went pale. "How do you know about San Rafael?" he stammered. I smiled, but it was a cold smile. "Because I heard you last night, Miguel. Both of you, here in my living room, at 3 a.m, planning how to get rid of me." The silence was devastating. Carmen spoke first with a trembling voice. "Mom, we weren't." "Weren't what?" I stood up. "Weren't planning to declare me incompetent? Didn't bring documents for property transfers? Didn't already contact a lawyer?" Miguel tried to regain control. "If you heard something, you misunderstood." "Did I misunderstand when you said you had my original keys and had given me copies? Did I misunderstand when you said you'd been documenting my incidents for a legal case?" Carmen started crying. "We just wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" My voice rose. "Do you call protection stealing my keys, spying on me, planning to sell my house without consulting me?" Miguel stood up. "You can't take care of yourself anymore. We made these decisions because we love you." "You love me?" I looked at him directly. "Do you know what love is? Love is respecting the autonomy of the person you love. Love is speaking honestly. Love is finding solutions together, not conspiring behind someone's back." "But you wouldn't have agreed," Miguel protested. "And wasn't it my right to make that decision? Isn't this my life? Isn't this my house?" Carmen wiped her tears. "Maybe we can find another solution." "Oh, but I already found my own solution," I said, taking my folder. I opened the folder and started taking out documents. "Here's my psychiatric evaluation from this morning, certifying that I'm completely competent." Both of them looked at the papers in shock. "Here's my new will, where I leave each of you $5,000 along with a letter explaining why. The rest goes to charities." "You can't!" Miguel went pale. "Here's the sale contract for the house. I sold it this morning to the Lopez family." Carmen stood up. "You can't have sold the house without our consent." I laughed without humor. "Do I need your consent to sell my own house? Carmen, you don't understand how private property works." "But our inheritance," Miguel started. "Your inheritance?" I interrupted him. "Were you counting on inheriting my house to pay for the nursing home where you planned to lock me up?" Miguel exploded. "This is insane. You can't make such important decisions so quickly." "So quickly? You've been planning this for months. I only had one night. And you know what I discovered? When I really need to think clearly, my mind works perfectly." "Where are you going to live?" Carmen asked in a small voice. I smiled with genuine satisfaction. "I'm moving to Golden Sun Residences, apartments for independent seniors. I'll have my own place, but with optional services and a community of people my age who still value their independence." How much does that cost? Miguel asked automatically. Less than San Rafael nursing home where you plan to put me. And I'm paying for it with the money from the sale of my house. Carmen sat down heavily. We made a mistake. We can fix this. Fix what? Can you fix that you plan to betray me? That you stole my keys? That you built a legal case against me for months? We thought it was for the best, Carmen murmured. No. You thought it was most convenient for you. You wanted to free yourselves from responsibility without feeling guilty. Miguel tried one more time. We're your family. We're all you have. I looked at him for a long moment. Miguel, for 50 years you've been all I had. But last night I learned something. It's better to be alone than surrounded by people who betray you for your own good. You can't be serious, Miguel said, his voice breaking. I'm your mother, yes, and that makes this betrayal hurt 1,000 times more. Carmen approached me. We love you. Everything was because we love you. I took her hands in mine. Carmen, if you really loved me, you would have spoken to me honestly. You would have asked what I wanted to do. You would have given me options, not secret ultimatums. Love doesn't conspire in darkness. What do you want us to do? Carmen asked, crying. I let go of her hands and walked toward the door. I want you to leave. I want you to respect my decision. And I want the next time you come, if there is a next time, to knock on the door and wait for me to invite you in. Miguel stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, I admitted, but it's my mistake to make. You had the right to make your mistakes when you were young. I have the right to make mine now. You're punishing us for worrying about you, Miguel shouted. For the first time in the entire conversation, I lost my composure. I'm punishing you for betraying me, I shouted back, for treating me like an object instead of a person, for stealing my dignity. The silence that followed was terrible. I wiped my tears and regained my calm. You have 1 hour to collect whatever belongs to you in this house, I said firmly. After that, I don't want to see you again until you can treat me like the competent adult I am. Carmen approached once more. Mom, please. No, I raised my hand. It's over. I made my decision, and unlike you, I do respect your right to live with the consequences. They headed toward the door. At the threshold, Miguel turned around. You're going to regret this. You're going to need us. And when that happens, maybe we won't be available. I looked at him with deep sadness. Miguel, I already needed you. I needed you to love and respect me. I needed you to be honest with me, and you weren't available for that. After they left, I sat down and cried for a full hour. I cried for the family I had lost, for the destroyed trust, for the loneliness that awaited me. But when I finished crying, I washed my face, touched up my makeup, and went to see my new apartment. 6 months later, I'm writing this from the terrace of my apartment at Golden Sun. I have a new friend, Rosa, a 75-year-old widow who went through something similar with her children. Do you ever regret it? She asks me sometimes. Sometimes I miss the idea of the family I thought I had, I tell her, but I don't regret respecting myself. I've received several letters from Carmen asking for forgiveness, explaining they were wrong, begging for a chance. I read them, fold them carefully, and keep them in a box along with family photographs. Maybe someday, I tell myself, but not today. I sleep deeply now for the first time in months. I learned that chosen solitude is better than imposed company, and that my dignity is worth more than family comfort. My children wanted to protect me from the dangers of the world, but I discovered that the greatest danger came from inside my own family. And I survived that too. On my nightstand, I have a note I read to myself every morning. Loving doesn't mean allowing yourself to be hurt. Caring doesn't mean controlling. And family doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity. I spent 72 years learning to be a mother, wife, and caregiver. In my final years, I finally learned to be myself. My message to you: if you're going through something similar, if you feel your family is making decisions about your life without including you, if they're treating you like a problem to solve instead of a person to respect, know that you're not alone. Age doesn't take away our right to make our own decisions. It doesn't make us our children's property. We have the right to dignity until the last day of our lives. Sometimes true love means saying no. Sometimes protecting someone means respecting their decisions, even if we don't understand them. And sometimes the most real family are the people who choose to stay when they have no obligation to do so. This is my story. It's real, it's painful, but it's also mine. And no one, not even my own children, has the right to take it away from me. Elena Martinez, 72 years old, survivor. The end. P.S. If this story touched you, as I hope it did, please share it. There are many seniors who need to know they're not alone, that they have rights, that their dignity matters. And there are many adult children who need to understand that loving is not the same as controlling. Thank you for listening to my story. Reintenter Claude puede cometer errores. Por favor, verifique las respuestas.